Hi, this video is called Identifying Polygons. And this is really exciting for me because not only does this video signify the start of a new unit, but this is also the first video that is an official 1-year mark for me and doing this flipped classroom. So thank you so much for participating in this and everything. But now you're going to start seeing some of the changes in how things happen with the overlap from last year. There will be supplemental videos that you are more than welcome to watch attached to this unit. It'll be in the archive. This is Unit 9. We're skipping Unit 8. We're going to come back to it. But it'll be, you can click on supplemental videos. Those videos are completely optional. They were made last year, and they're fine. It's just they're not up to date. There's a demo thing in the middle of it, and it's not using current note paper. We were using a different notebook last year. But you're welcome to check it out, watch it, laugh at some of the goofy mistakes and how rough the videos look a little bit back then. And yeah, they're kind of fun. And it's more practice, more too. So here we go. This is Unit 9, Identifying Polygons. If you notice in the tool bag, oh my god, Mr. V, you're insane. Yeah, I probably am. But if you check it out, there is a lot of vocabulary involved in this unit. Like in this whole chapter. There's so much vocabulary that I would be insane to make you do all of this without talking about the vocabulary. So I'm going to zoom in and so you can write this down, and I'll stop moving it every once in a while so you can pause it. But man, I would just write all this vocabulary down. We got triangles. Well, there's all sorts of triangles. We got quadrilaterals. Well, there's all sorts of quadrilaterals. And then we got a few other shapes that it's just good to know the names of. So again, just pause it every now and then and just copy it down. In this video, I am personally going to be doing no writing. This is a chart that I came up with, and it's good. The chart is all good. So I highly recommend pausing the video when you need to. I would watch this entire video completely through, at least the first 2 charts. There's a chart now, and there'll be a chart on another page. The other one you can probably pause and go as you like. But I highly recommend watching this completely through. Don't just start drawing stuff on here, because you're going to get completely confused, and then you're going to run out of space in a certain part, because I might randomly be like, and then there's an arrow over here, and then you're like, oh my god, I don't have any space over there. So I recommend watching the video completely before you just start jamming away. And man, we are going to jam. The first question you always ask when dealing with polygons, and you're asking yourself, what is a polygon? Polygon is a shape made by straight lines. We personally will be focusing on convex polygons, which means all of the angles face inward. And I'll talk more about that in class, what a convex and a non-convex polygon is. But it's basically that's what we're going to focus on. But the first question you always ask yourself is, how many sides are there? Always count the sides before you start doing something, please, because that'll kill you. Well, there are no one-sided or two-sided polygons, at least that we're going to talk about. Go become a math major and you will. But we are going to talk about 3-sided polygons. I need another piece of paper so I don't give too much away. But we will be talking about 3-sided polygons first. Well, we should all know what a 3-sided polygon is, I hope. 3-sided polygon is called a triangle. Well, triangles have 2 ways of being classified. They're unique in that sense. Quadrilaterals don't have this issue, which is the next chart, but triangles do. Triangles have 2 different classifications. We are going to talk about angle size classification first. So we're just looking at the angles. It cannot be more than 1 classification. Quadrilaterals can have multiple classifications. As far as angle size classifications on a triangle, there's only 1. Either all of the angles are less than 90. That is one option. All angles are less than 90. Well, if all the angles are less than 90, so I'm getting all positioned up on this so I can make sure you get a good picture on this. If all the angles are less than 90, then that is called an acute triangle. Because all the angles are acute. They are all less than 90. That's the definition. Next one. one angle, just one. Remember we talked about this when we did Pythagorean theorem. Guess what's coming back, people? Oh yeah, Pythagorean theorem. We already know, we're pretty familiar with right triangle, a triangle with one angle that is equal to 90 degrees. And that is a right triangle. Can't have more than one. If it has two right angles, it's not a triangle because the angles will not make a closed figure. So that's not going to work. And the last angle size classification would be if one of our angles is bigger than 90. One angle is greater, that's greater, not 7. Just look at it sideways, sort of. One angle is greater than 90. That is an obtuse angle. Letter C would be, the C angle would be obtuse. So, there you go. That is angle classification. Here we go. By size. What about length, or if the angles are equal? That's a great question. God, you in the back, that was a really good question. Let's talk about that. First off, the first thing would be said is if none of the angles are equal, not one angle is equal, that is called a scalene triangle. All the angles are equal, all the angles are not equal, and all the sides are not equal. And you can do this classification using the sides and the angles. It's pretty awesome. Like, I love this stuff. So, there you go, scalene triangle. No sides are equal. Or angles. What if two angles are equal? Well, that's a great question. We should hopefully know that one from last year. And by the way, yep, busting out the colored pencils. Oh yeah, you better too. An isosceles triangle. At least, notice I put the words at least. One angle. And I don't see the word angle right there. Do I have a pencil on my desk? All my pencils are like halfway across the room. One angle. At least one angle. Idiot. Two angles. At least two angles are congruent. I apologize for that. At least two angles are congruent. Please put an S on the end of angles. That would make an isosceles triangle. Either two sides or two angles are congruent. And what's really neat about that for definition, and I have an arrow going from triangle to here, I have another angle. If it says at least, so technically if it's an equilateral triangle, then it's also an isosceles triangle, which is a triangle. See how that works? The arrows. So if it's an equilateral triangle, all the sides are equal and all the angles are equal. It is also called a 60-degree triangle because all of the angles are equal to 60 degrees. 180 divided by 3, 60. Equilateral triangle. So this gets pretty crazy looking at this. So there's two different ways of classifying a triangle. For instance, I could have a right isosceles triangle. It has a right angle and two angles are equal, which means two angles are 45 degrees, not 90. Can't have 90, but you can have two 45s. You might have an obtuse scalene, an obtuse acute, or an acute scalene. An equilateral triangle is always acute, so saying acute equilateral triangle, you can. Also, that's an A, not an O. That is an A. I know I have a little tail on it. So this is really cool. So when you classify, you actually use one from here, one from here. It's a right scalene triangle. So it's an obtuse scalene triangle. So many different ways of combining them. That is triangles. Here we go. Quadrilaterals. And this is the main event, ladies and gentlemen. Oh man. Oh man. This is it. This is the showstopper. The moneymaker. Some poker movie coming out that uses moneymaker every 5 seconds. Driving me up a wall every time I see it. If it is 4 sides, it is called a quadrilateral. I might zoom in and focus on stuff like here and there, but I'm just going to stay zoomed out because, man, I'm just not going to. We'll zoom in. I'll move it around a little bit to get you a closer look on words and stuff. So, the first thing on quadrilateral is If all of the sides are not equal, nothing's equal, none of the angles are equal, nothing's working together, then it's just called a quadrilateral. We would just call that a quadrilateral. Oh yeah, busting out the colored pencils. If all of the sides are not equal, every single one is a different size, different color, different size. Clever, right? We just call it a quadrilateral. We're going to go to the left. One pair of congruent opposite angles. So there's one pair of congruent opposite angles, and two pairs of adjacent sides are congruent. What does that mean, Mr. V? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. Well, that's called a kite. There we go. A little bit of darkness. A little dark color. All right. So that's called a kite. Again, opposite angles are equal. These sides are congruent with each other. The pairs are. The adjacent pairs are. So yes, it's a quadrilateral, but it's a kite, and that's what you would call it. It's also been called a diamond, I've seen before, but usually people call them kites, from what I've read. Cool. And if all of the sides are congruent, if every single side is congruent, that means it is a rhombus. If all four sides are congruent and the opposite angles, it looks like these angles are equal and these angles will, I don't know, we'll see in a minute. Oh, you'll see in a minute. But if all sides are equal instead of just the adjacent pairs, that's also called a rhombus. Let's go back up to quadrilateral. What if two pairs of opposite sides are congruent? Well, that would mean it is a parallelogram. Two pairs of opposite congruent angles and sides. The opposite angles are equal. The opposite angles are equal. The opposite sides are equal. Hence the same color. So that is called a parallelogram. What happens if all the sides are equal? That is called a rhombus. What if Mr. V forgets a shape on the graph? Then he's going to get really annoyed and have to add something real quick. Be right back. And you might be like, Mr. V, you really don't have to add it. It's cool. No, seriously. You can ask Mr. Lynch when you have him for math class. I am obsessed with this one. And I'll do a rough drawing of it also. There's also another case before the parallelogram, and I'll do the arrows correctly. It is called a trapezoid, where I just made it look like right angles. I didn't mean to. And this is what it means to be a trapezoid. These two lines are parallel. That's it. Nothing has to be equal. The angles don't have to be the same. But at least there are at least two sides are parallel. And of course they have to be opposite, but you don't have to say that because that would mean they don't work. And that is called a trapezoid. Period. Mr. V, why are you making such a big deal about this one? I've said it before, Americans are stupid with their vocabulary. If you look in the English dictionary, they have the word at least, or the two words at least. If you read in an American dictionary, it says exactly two sides are parallel, which makes no sense to me. I was taught that a trapezoid is a parallelogram. Thank God my high school teacher knew what she was talking about, and I totally 100% agree with her. Americans are insane. A parallelogram is a trapezoid. Absolutely. Because now the opposite sides are both parallel. So we'll just say are all parallel. So what that means is the red sides and the blue sides, the red sides are parallel to each other, the blue sides are parallel to each other. That's why it's called a parallelogram. Parallel sides. So that's huge. I apologize for my rant. But you gotta have trapezoid on a quadrilateral. You gotta. You just gotta. You gotta. That's why I said don't draw this until I finish the video. I knew I was gonna mess something up. I'm so mad. I made this look like right angles. They don't have to be up here. Usually they can be. That's called a right trapezoid. More specialized word. But they don't have to be. Okay, moving on. Mr. V's tangent is over. What's awesome is a rhombus is a kite and a parallelogram. It's both of these things at the same time, basically. So you take everything that makes a kite and everything that makes a parallelogram, shove them together. And that is what a rhombus is. It's the two things at the same time. Cool. What happens if all these angles are equal to each other? If all the angles are equal to each other, that makes a rectangle, of course. All angles are 90 degrees. And if all the sides are congruent, that makes a square. Rhombus. If I start at a rhombus and I find out all the angles are congruent, that is a square also. So, on this we have a quadrilateral, a kite, a trapezoid, a parallelogram, a kite and a parallelogram that make a rhombus. A rhombus and a rectangle, which a rectangle is a parallelogram, makes a square. And a square is everything is equal. All the opposite sides are equal. They're parallel also. They are parallel. So hopefully this chart makes a little more sense. If you want to redo it and adjust it a little bit, maybe put trapezoid right here where it's supposed to be. I'm going to kick myself all night knowing that I messed that up. I had colored pencils. I had a ruler. You better make these with a ruler. I don't have any ruler. Please use a ruler. I can't believe I messed that up. Oh, well, moving on. Please, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'll move it around so you can pause it and maybe write the definitions if you need to. Yes, you can use this in class when I ask you to identify shapes, of course. Square. Last page. Ah. I developed OCD at UC Davis. I swear I did. Here we go. Moving on. Last little bit. 5 sides is a pentagon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That is a pentagon. Cool. We won't get into regular shapes, but everything after this, a square is a regular shape. Equilateral triangle is a regular shape. They're called regular when all the sides are equal. We're not going to get into that, but the pentagon building is the pentagon, thus called a pentagon. All the sides are equal. That's a regular pentagon. Here's a hexagon. Cool, neato. 6 sides. Oh, you probably need to see how to spell hexagon. It has 6 sides, of course. I don't expect you to know what a 7-sided object is called, but if you know, cool. A stop sign. That is an octagon. Of course, it doesn't look like a stop sign, but it still has 8 sides. Decagon. 9-sided object. I had to look that one up because I couldn't even remember that one. 10-sided object is a decagon. Draw your own. It just has to have 10 sides. It doesn't have to be exactly mine. Because mine, this is it barely looks like an angle. That's why the decagon looks crazy, right? Right? It's crazy. Yo. So, there you go. So there's 4 more little tiny shapes that I definitely would recommend knowing for a test or something. Or just for your knowledge. Polygons, geometry, Euclid, math. Have a great night.